Without further ado, I want to introduce to you Crystal and Wilbert and thank them again so much.
Thank you so much,
Thank you so
Vicki.
much.
Thank you so much, Vicki, and thank you so much, Sandy. Thank you from the Small Business Development Center for all of your efforts, and we'd like to thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedules to come and join us today. And we're real excited about our topic, Ethical Treasure Chest, Leadership Nuggets for Success. This program has been sponsored by the Small Business Development Center's Portability Project, and that was a grant funded through the Small Business Administration to help our businesses in Brevard County.
Our treasure map agenda will take us today in the area of leadership, ethics. We'll take a 15-minute break. Then we'll have some group activity where you will be involved. And we'll also give you some ethical leadership nuggets for success.
We're going to start out giving you some foundational information about leadership, and then we'll go into the rest of our presentation.
Jack Welch gives a definition about leadership. And it just simply, it boils down to one thing is what he said, and that's facing reality and acting quickly, decisive on that reality. Now that's key, that's very key. As entrepreneurs, as leaders of your company, that's what it boils down to. But notice that it's also a process where you're influencing employees to do their very best. And you're also looking at obtaining your goal through the help of your workers.
And leadership is a process. It's a process that involves the influence within the group that you're working within, and it involves goal attainment. We're going to start out talking about leadership traits and characteristics, and we're going to get your input to start off with. We're getting your thoughts on what are effective traits of leaders. What traits do effective leaders possess? Okay? So why don't we highlight some of those thoughts? And you can just go on and
Influence.
okay.
Great answer. Anyone else?
They hold people accountable.
Okay.
They delegate task and also responsibility and authority.
Awesome.
High moral standards, sense of purpose.
Okay.
I think confidence. If you're not confident, people won't trust in you and follow you.
We wanted to get your thoughts about that. Let's talk about a sample of some of the foundational research in the areas of leadership characteristics and traits, okay? And back in the 1920s, the study of leadership characteristics and traits really came about, okay? And there was a great man theory, or great man was the way that people looked at, the researchers looked at the area of traits. They felt that leaders were born with these specific traits and that they had a different skill set from those that were non-leaders. And as the researchers continued to go more in depth through surveys and other experimental kinds of research, they found that not to be so true, that leaders are not born, but leaders can be developed, okay? And that you have these skills and you have these traits that are found in effective leaders, but they can be developed through training, through self-study, through all kinds of different things. You know, today we have a wealth of insight right at our fingertips, okay? You have books, self-help books. You can go and do a lot of reading yourself on leadership. You can also listen to the audio tapes and different self-help kinds of leadership training skills, things that you can do to enhance your skills while you're exercising or walking on the beach. You see people with iPods and earphones in, and they're listening to a variety of different things, some of which are self-development kinds of materials to help enhance their skills, okay? So I think what we have here is very, very important. You talked about influence, accountability, being able to delegate, and that's important, being able to delegate and not micromanage, okay? Having a high moral standard and having confidence. People want to know that they can have confidence in their leaders or the owners of the business that they're working for. They want to know that they can trust you, that you will do what you say you're going to do, that you're going to hold a high moral standard to the way that you conduct business. And no longer is the mode of operation, you do what I say and not what I do. People are watching, even when you think they're not watching. Your children are watching. If you're lying to someone about something, your children are the first ones to see how you conduct business. And believe it or not, those things do make a difference on how they act and how they value what you say. So I think that we had some good feedback from you. And also, you know, we have the research that shows a lot of other things. The intelligence, the achievement, persistence. Persistence goes a very, very long way. Motivation. Those that are motivated to do things and have a strong desire to succeed, lots of times go a lot further than those that have it handed to them in life, okay? So you'll see those, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. Lots of times they're the ones at the finish line when those that maybe had something handed to them and it came easier did not make it, okay? Let's talk about traits of successful entrepreneurs. Now we have here just some things that entrepreneurs are risk takers, overachievers, willing to take risks with their personal funds. And entrepreneurs, we work hard. We work hard to make sure that our businesses work. And we do a lot of things. I remember Sandy saying, we got emails from you at 2 o'clock this morning. We got emails. Y'all are working around the clock. But you do what you need to do. Don't go to the next one. You do what you need to do to make things happen. And especially when you're passionate about your business and you want to make that happen, you're going to be the one to do and pull together everything that needs to take place. So what do you think, in addition to that, are some traits that are traits of successful entrepreneurs? Okay, it's a little bit different.
Ambition.
Okay.
Determined.
Okay.
You have to be determined.
Absolutely.
You're right.
Strategic thinkers.
Yes.
Thinkers.
You have to have that vision and you have to work your vision. You're right. Anybody else?
I think self-discipline.
Self-discipline.
One last one.
Flexible.
You have to be flexible.
Flexible.
And you remember the book, Who Moved My Cheese? Well, we as entrepreneurs have to continue to see the handwriting on the walls. Okay? We have to know when change is coming about, when the cheese is moved, and we have to make those adjustments. We have to be able to flow in change effectively. We have to make the adjustments and make the shifts in order to maneuver our business, especially through the challenging times that we're facing right now in Brevard County, with the close of the shuttle program and the turmoil that a lot of business owners are being challenged with. You have to know how to maneuver and strategize yourself differently, how to not continue to do business as usual, but how to think outside of the box. It's about out-of-the-box kinds of thinking to make things happen. You know, maybe look at opportunities that you had not. Maybe if you did your business basically in Brevard County, well, let's look at Orlando and let's look at maybe doing some online kinds of activities as well, or networking, getting certifications through the state and through county government, and looking at if we didn't do government contracts, that may be another way to bring in resources that we had not done in the past. So it's just really reinventing ourselves in a continual process. Wouldn't you say? Okay.
And I'd just like to add to that, that if you notice the change in the way business is being conducted today, it's almost impossible to really to compete effectively without having a website, without having computers and the latest and the greatest technology. I mean, we have instruments from cell phones to iPads, different ways of communicating. You can do virtual communication without being there. We love to do face-to-face types of communication, but just think about it when you are able to even conduct business in another part of the world without being there and be just as effective. That is very awesome. And so it's key that we move with the change and move with the technology, the flow of things, so that we won't be left behind, left in the dust. And those who would just hesitate and ponder on whether or not they should do this are going to have some real challenges in being able to be profitable in this market, because business is changing. It's changing dramatically, and you would not be able to compete effectively without the bells and whistles.
And we're seeing that even so with the fact people are using, they're not going to the yellow pages anymore. You know, the advertising that we used to do in the yellow pages to have that presence, people are not looking at that. They're going to their phones. They're going to their computers. They're Googling. They're doing other things that will give them the companies and the businesses that they're looking at trying to do business with. So we've got to make that shift. The website, as Wilbert said, in addition to maybe the fan pages and other things, the social media. I know I've been fighting the social media for a long time, but I realized that that's something going into next year that I've got to have that presence in order to make things much more effective. But I really did not want to make that shift, but I know that I have to make that now. Successful entrepreneurs also have the patience to start small, okay? These are some of the other things, and we're not going to read these to you, but you have to make the decisions that you're going to make the sacrifices that you're going to make, and follow your dream. Follow your passion. Because people can tell when you're passionate about what you do, and that passion takes you a lot further. And you know, even with the employment, we used to do business face-to-face. We used to go and meet with people, and that was the way of the land. And I know that a lot of that process has changed, but still, you still need to make the effort to go and meet people and talk to them. But with online applications and online processes, it takes a lot of the personal touch out of business dealings. But somehow or another, people do business with those people that they trust, that they like. And we still have to find other ways, even though those roadblocks are there, to get ourselves out there, to network so that people will know us and they will feel comfortable with us. The chamber is one good way. There are many different organizations that you can get in, organizations that you would be able to work with people that, or meet with people that are in your specific areas of expertise, that can tell you about lessons learned, things that they've done that didn't work, things that they've done that have worked. And that will save you from having to reinvent the wheel. But these things are important. And I think someone said earlier about being able to close the deal or being able to sell your strategy and make that happen. That is also so important, especially during this time of change.
These are some other valuable characteristics and traits of entrepreneurs. And the reason why we appeal so much to entrepreneurs, because basically, if you're not a manager of a company that is not your company, then that means you're on your own. You're working as an entrepreneur, you're working as a business owner. And so we wanted to show you mainly how much more you have to get involved to be successful. It's a lot more going to being an entrepreneur because you wear many hats. And I don't know about you, but my wife and I, the business that we started, we are everything to it. to that business, okay? And so we actually have to have great negotiating skills. We have technical skills. We have to have all of this. And not only that, we have to have a passion for what we're doing, okay? And so do you. You have to have a passion. People could feel your energy. They know whether or not you are really involved in what you say you're involved in. Have you ever went to a place and you talked to individuals who are running business and their energy level is just so low that you couldn't wait to get out the door because it's like, this is draining for me, you know. But I want to caution you, no matter if you are having challenge, and we will, you still want to come across in such a way that that negative energy won't be picked up by your customers, your employees, and individuals that will come into your setting. Notice that you can be around people who speak about gloom and doom, and it does something to your day if you let it affect you.
It drains you.
It really drains the individual. And so we want to encourage you to take a look at what role you will have to play as an entrepreneur. Very key, very key.
And one of the things that, you know, Wilbert and I do, and I don't know about you all, but we really don't even listen to the news. We turn the news off because you would hear all of the stuff going on and get so absorbed, and, you know, that's not good. So we're like the mouse that's has his ears covered or he's deaf, and we're going towards our vision and what we're trying to do, and we're not listening to what other people have to say about what we can and cannot do. And so that's the thing that you have to really keep your eye on your vision and your direction and move forward regardless. If you feel that you have a good business, a good model, a good process and project that you're working on, then you have to be the driving force on making that become a reality for you and not listen to what other people are saying, you know, about the economy and this is not a good time or whatever. We chose not to even listen to that or bring it into our existence. And we always try to, our philosophy is making lemonade out of lemons, you know, or turning obstacles into opportunities. And that's kind of the way that we govern ourselves.
Absolutely. And I just want to say briefly, I had to make some decisions back in 2008. I had a choice to, and I was employed with General Motors at the time. I did managerial. I was on their staff and doing some things. I managed tradesmen. But I had to make some decisions because my company was closing. I was faced with either traveling, going to another place, another state, or I could retire prematurely. And so you know what I chose to do. In 2008, I chose to retire prematurely. And I thought that I would be able to get involved in something because I knew I had enough talent. I'm an electrician by trade. I'm still licensed in the state of Michigan. But I ventured out and I took what we call a leap of faith. And I must say this, and I hope it don't offend anyone, but I took that leap of faith trusting God that he would open up another door for me because he had opened up that previous door. And so I want to encourage you to know that even though you may hear things that goes like this, you know, you're not going to really be able to pull this off, you know, because you're just a woman. This is a man's world. Or to the man, you know, you really too old to start all over again. I heard all of it. I was 56 years old when I left GM. And you could say I started a new career at 56 years old. But guess what? I found out that people who leave corporate America are actually individuals who are in the mid to late 50s. Isn't that interesting? So I just want to encourage everyone that if you have the guts, if you have the nerves, and plus the skills, if you were capable of helping another company make billions of dollars, you should be capable and have the ability to make some millions for yourself.
And just to give you a brief overview of me as well, I worked in the educational arena, and I had hit burnout. You know, I was working on my doctorate at that time, had hit burnout, and I had kind of lost the passion for what I was doing. Okay, I was very passionate at one time, but the passion had faded. And I was looking more towards the future with my degree in organizational leadership and the areas that I wanted to go into with my own business and those kinds of things. And so I ended up leaving as well. I ended up taking that leap of faith. And I chose to follow my passion. And so we're real excited now, you know, about our business and the opportunities. And I think that it's important that, you know, we all have times in our lives where we come to that fork in the road and we have to make decisions and choices. And we have to also realize, you know, of course, some of the questions that people would have for you is, how could you leave your job? How are you going to survive? How are you going to do this and that? Well, you know, that's what I'm talking about in reference to closing your ears sometime and just doing what you're feeling led to do and trying to make things happen. So let's go to the next slide. Now, all leaders, managers, and entrepreneurs must do the following, and they must be able to do the following effectively. You need to plan, you need to organize, you need to lead, control, and direct. And I say, you may look at that and say, well, why do we have entrepreneurs in there with leaders and managers? Well, entrepreneurs basically have to do a lot of all of it.
Absolutely.
You have to lead, you have to manage, and you have to do all other duties as assigned. And so it's very important, because lots of times when we start out in our businesses, we're the persons in the trenches until we can build it to a place where we can bring more people in. So you have to be able to do all of those things, and or bring in people to your business that can do the areas that you're not so strong in. So we have here a chart, and it talks about the differences between leadership and management, okay? Leadership produces change and movement within an organization. We talked about vision earlier. We talked about strategies. Communication is very key. Being able to get to delegate and get support from your employees is also very key. Empowering your subordinates, giving them the power to do the job that you've hired them to do, and not micromanaging in the process, okay? You know, you have other things that you need to be focusing on versus trying to micromanage, okay? And so that's very, very important. On the other side, you have the management team, if you're in a traditional business, that produces order and consistency. And so these are the areas that the management piece of a business or an organization are responsible for. And they're quite different.
Absolutely. And just note that if you started out as an entrepreneur, you actually had to do all of these things. If you did not have the skills to do everything that you was trying to get established. And so we hop on entrepreneurs so much because we're finding that even CEOs in businesses that they manage for corporations are looking at that role and say, you know, I have to be more than just one that provide resources and influence people to do things. I need to be able to have negotiating skills. I need technical skills. I need to be able to fit the role of an entrepreneur so that I can be more advanced in the things that I can bring into the setting. And so this is very key, and that's why we made that appeal, and we tried to show that entrepreneurs actually had a lot more that they was involved in. And when you take on that role, you become responsible for everything. And so it's very interesting.
Okay, and just as we've stated before, entrepreneurs lead, manage, control, and they do all of those different things, okay? So the capacity is far greater. Now let's talk a little bit about employee motivation and morale. You can't talk about leadership without talking about the impact of the followers and things that are important to them. And the primary reason employees leave their job has to do with lack of praise and recognition. We've seen a lot of studies through research that have shown that it's lack of praise and lack of recognition. You've done a great job. We really appreciate your efforts. We've noticed what role you play in the fulfillment of our organization's vision and mission and goals. You know, just a note or something to let your employees know that you appreciate them and you do recognize those efforts are very important. When it comes to motivation and rewards, research has shown that money is not the #1 motivator. So what do you think? Let's talk about some motivation. What would you consider to be motivation for employees?
You already mentioned recognition.
Okay.
Okay.
I used to manage retail stores, and I've owned 2 small businesses of my own, and I've never lost an employee, and this is why I think that is true. I treat them with respect, and I also never ask them to do anything that I wouldn't get down there and do myself. And I never held myself higher than them, and I believe that they really appreciated that.
Okay. And so what I hear you saying, Christina, is that it wasn't so much giving them a reward, but you was able to influence them internally. See, we have internal drives, internal things that drive us and propel us to be at our best. While there are external components or external things that drives us, such as money and praise and recognition, it's best to really to have an internal drive where you have a passion for what you do. And people would sense that, they would feel that, and they would want to be a part. And we recognize that we aspire to motivate people and encourage people to be their best. And research has shown that those individuals who are driven internally because they want to be a success, that's something that is innate and born in them. But when you have to have what we call external factors to move you and push you, and let's face it, we're driven by money because it's a need to take care of things, okay? But what about having a passion for what you're doing? And having a passion for what you do kind of take all the other external things out of the equation. Now, what comes with having internal drive is wealth. You can make wealth. I think that the focus should be that we prioritize or put things in their proper perspective. It's just like trying to go and be successful without having insight and knowledge. We need knowledge first, then we can move towards success. So what I'm saying in essence is that we need to have something innate in us, pushing us without having something on the outside saying, come get me and move because I have this waiting for you. And so we understand that being parents and being business owners. Sometimes we motivate our kids and we do it on a reward system, okay? What we're going to do today is that if everybody get their room cleaned up in such and such a time, we're going to go to a movie or we're going to have a nice meal or we're going to do what you want to do. So we are getting them motivated, our kids, by external factors such as a movie or having a good time. But ultimately, we aspire to teach them, listen, I want you to learn to be responsible. So what I'm instilling in you is going to take you a long ways. And even if no one ever say anything to you, you'll know that you must get up and do this. So that's what we aspire to do.
Okay. Thank you. I have handed out this balance wheel, life balance wheel. And what we'd like for you to do is just to take a moment or two and kind of put a dot on in the section. Let's see here. In the section, each section, you're going to put a dot where you're most satisfied, and I believe the most satisfied is towards the outer part of the circle, okay? And then you're going to, if you're not satisfied in this area, then it's going to be closer to the middle, okay? And we'd like for each of you to do that, and then we just want to, see what kind of thoughts you have about this exercise, because it's important with us being business owners and with us being engaged in businesses. Lots of times we're so caught up with accomplishing the things that we've set out to accomplish, our vision, our mission, and goals. And we forget about the other pieces of our life that need to take place. Yes?
All right. On those that we're very satisfied with, or the dot goes on the outside? I believe so.
It says the outside of the circle represents the maximum success, satisfaction area, okay? And then for those that are not so satisfied in a specific area, then the dot goes closer to the middle, okay? And this kind of gives you a visual alignment of where you are, because we get so caught up with fulfilling the mission, goals, and visions of our business that a lot of things sometimes fall to the wayside. So we'd like for you to complete that and then just talk to us about, where you feel you are. This helps to give you something to work on.
Absolutely.
As an exercise.
Yes, and we really want to engage you to think about, where am I? Even though I'm striving to be successful, have I forgotten important things? Have I forgotten my family life? Who's suffering as a result of the efforts that I'm putting into my business? It's my family. If my family is not with me, then there may be unbalance there. So we strive as people for balance in everything that we do. And so this is just to challenge you to look at, okay, where am I? What can I change, and where do I need to improve? All of this is key.
And what kinds of things are we putting on the line to realize our dreams and aspirations with our businesses? Do we need to do some things differently? I mean, to arrive at the destination of a successful business and you've lost your family because you were never there, you were working 100 hours a week and you weren't available, then what have we really gained? And so this is just to kind of give us something to think about and just, take a reflective look at where we are and what we need to do.
We looked at the top 3 motivators, and this is what research showed. I think about people who are not so much as driven by anything but the fact that I just want to help. I have a passion for just helping people. And so you can tell those individuals, because they would volunteer. They would do things without money, without recognition, and they would move forward, and they would be a great asset to you. And there are people out there like that are looking to help someone.
Okay, key factors that are important to employees: feeling that they make a contribution, that what they do, the role they play in the business, has a positive impact in helping you to fulfill the mission, goals, and objectives of that organization. Okay? Having a manager to tell them that they're doing a good job. We've talked about that. And also having the respect.
Yes.
The respect from their peers.
Absolutely. I think Karen said that respect was a big issue. Absolutely.
Being able to be fulfilled within your job. Self-actualization. I know for me, the number one motivator for me is feeling like I'm doing the very best job that I can do. It's that little perfectionist thing, and when I lost my passion, doing what I did, and I was very passionate about that for many years, then that motivation was gone. And I felt that it was time for me to make a shift in what I was doing, because by me fulfilling the goals and the expectations of what I had to do with my role and my position, you know, lots of times I did much more than what was expected of me to do because of that. And so feeling like I was making a contribution and the way that I did that and knowing how it helped, you know, fulfill the mission had a lot to do with my feelings of success and my internal rewards.
Absolutely. And so it's really interesting also that you can be driven to move to another form of passion for something. Now, I don't know if many of you have experienced this, but I experienced this in midlife where I was happy working for General Motors as a manager and as an electrician. And all of a sudden, I kind of lost that. Because initially my goal was to make a good living at General Motors. And I went after the goal, and we're going to talk about that. I went after the goal, but I found out that going after the goal just wasn't enough to keep me motivated and interested, even though I was excited about my trade. But somewhere along the line, things shifted in my life. I began to have interest in other things, and I thought, you know, I really haven't made the impact that I think I could make. And so I realized that I had a knack for being a cheerleader for others. So here I am. I decided to move away from using my hands to using my brains a lot more and getting to speak to people and to say things that would drive them to be their very best. So what I'm saying in essence is that I was looking at pulling the very best potentials out of others.
It's important to have an employer of choice organization, especially during challenging times. Companies that address work-life balance. We all have different things that are going on in our lives, and being able to have a flexible work schedule, to be able to maybe telecommute occasionally or, you know, whatever, to have that flexibility to do our jobs and to do it well in a non-traditional kind of situation is where people are choosing to go, and especially during this time period, okay? So it's important to attract and to keep talent, to enhance loyalty, to boost morale, and to create a win-win environment within your business. These things are important when you look at how do I get the best fit for my organization? And once I get them, how do I keep them? Well, being able to offer some things, these research has shown are the things that even more than pay. People will go with the right kind of work environment, being given work that they're not being micromanaged to do, and they're able to use the full range of their talents and skills to fulfill the vision of the organization, and being able to know that they're making a difference. They'll go with that and take a few $1,000s less to be happy, to have the flexibility to deal with parents, to deal with children, to deal with life, and not be penalized for the traditional, you know, routine schedule. So those things are important.
Absolutely.
And you're finding that with people having to work longer and, you know, because of losing funds in the stocks and the challenges that we've had over the past several years, people are having to work longer. We're also having challenges with our parents. And we're having to not only take care of our children, but we're having to take care of our parents and make sure that we're addressing their needs as well. So the flexibility really makes a difference when you're able to have that in a work environment and then give your very best as well. The things that are important do make a difference.
So we looked at actually securing the buy-in of your employee. Give them the ability to create policy with you. In that, remember, your employees have great ideas. They are the ones that help propel you to success. And if we alienate them from being a part of what we are doing, we're cutting our own nose off, believe it or not. And so I've learned this, and I watched this being a supervisor that managed skilled tradesmen. What I did for the tradesmen is that I asked them, what could I get for you to do the job, and how do you want to do it? Now, being an electrician, I could have just wrote down different things because I had to know some things about mechanics and robotics and hydraulic and all of those things, but I was smart enough to know that I was dealing with skilled people. And when you're dealing with skilled people, it suggests minimum supervision. All you have to do is turn them loose, and you'll find out that when people have leeway, that they would do their very best. And so I was able to get out of their way, let them tell me how they want to do the job. I just had, I had a time that I was working with, and I said, I need this done by such and such a time, you know, and if you can make this happen, we are on. And so basically that's what it was. So I didn't have to worry about it. All I did was just, I held the tradesman responsible. I'm going to keep you accountable to what you say. I'm going to give you the tools that you need to work with, but there must be accountability. And that's basically what I did. I got out of their way and just held them accountable. And it's going to be imperative that you as business owners, as entrepreneurs, leaders, managers, that you give the people the opportunity to work with you in creating different things such as policy, you know, rewarding them for their efforts. Let them know you appreciate them. All of this is key. Recognizing individuals that bring unique perspective to your setting. That's going to be key. Individuals that can complement you. You want individuals that can complement you, not compete with you. Because when you start competing with one another, something is going to be missed. And what's going to be missed is information, relevant information that is very pertinent to your success. I watched this happen at GM. I have to tell you this because I thought it was stupid. And I got up in the meeting and said this. I said, we are competing against each other when we should be competing against another plant. So we had shift from shift competing with each other as to who could run the most production, right? And so you would hear things like this, oh, we ran 350 trucks today. And second shift, they only run 200. Okay? And so I'm thinking, all right, what was missed? Come to find out that, okay, information wasn't passed on to the other shift, the reason why they could not get out of the hole, because they had some maintenance issues that should have been addressed. So I didn't tell them, and that's what happened. I didn't tell them what they needed to do to get out of the hole, so therefore they was down for a period of time, which caused them to lose 2 or 3 hours of production time, and I looked good. That's the kind of thing that happened in businesses that we don't want to happen. We don't want to be hurt by nonsense. We want to be able to grow. We want to be able to be successful and get the production that we want to get, make the sale that we want to make, and all of those things. We don't want people who are going to be in our midst working in opposition to us. So it becomes necessary for the leader to set the pace. You are the trailblazers.
And also offering things like promotional opportunities and incentives, educational opportunities and incentives. Those things are very, very important, and it gives employees something to work for. And when you have a happy employee, then the chances are greater that you're going to have a much more successful business.
Now we move to the ethics arena. Ethics, very interesting subject. But the Joseph Institute define ethics that is about how we meet the challenges of doing the right thing when that may cost us more than what we want to pay. Now, that's a difficult statement. And I know that from time to time we are challenged to make decisions based on situations. And we can call that situational ethics, if you will. And all of us have done it, and we do it because we find ourselves having dilemmas sometimes that are a little bit more difficult to solve, you know. And so we want to look at how we could really maintain our values, the norms, the standards, the universal principles, and still move forward and be profitable. And I know I said a mouthful, but believe it or not, we could have what we call a mentality that says that I'm going to treat others the way I want to be treated, and not carry the mentality that I'm going to do it to you before you do it to me. Because some people are carrying that mentality. I'm going to get you before you get me. Mm-hmm. And that is the mentality that has hurt our society. Moving away from morality has hurt businesses tremendously. I mean, we can name a dozen businesses that have went through that.
And when you're talking about the situational ethics, you also have situational leadership, okay?
Yes.
Someone that may be a leader functioning in one capacity, the things may shift and they may not be a leader in another capacity. The same thing with ethics, situational ethics. What decision am I going to choose and how am I going to handle this specific situation, especially when no one is looking or you think no one is looking. Someone is always looking, okay? People always see you. I remember one time I was living in Tallahassee at the time, and I went a few hours west to Panama City Beach. And I was walking on the beach. Didn't know anybody there, wasn't thinking about anybody seeing me that knew me or anything like that. I came back to church the following week, and someone came up to me, and I didn't even recognize this person. I had seen the person, but if I had seen them on the beach, I probably wouldn't have recognized them because it was a fairly big church. And they came up to me and said, "Were you in Panama City? We saw you walking on the beach." Okay? Now, someone always watches. So if I had been behaving inappropriately or doing something that was out of character, thinking that nobody saw me, I would have been busted, or their impression of me would have changed drastically. Absolutely. Because, you know, they see me one way at church and see me another way when I'm out thinking nobody's looking. Well, the same thing with our businesses, okay? It's important to know that what goes on in the dark will eventually come out in the light. One of the reasons why I left my last place of employment, okay? I managed a program, and things were not right with the money. Right. And I kept going back to my boss and saying, you know, I turned in these things way in advance. They're still not paid. People are coming a year later, and I've come back, and these are the dates that I've come back to you, and you said that you would have your administrative assistant to pay those bills. And I had a paper trail, okay? But where I was told that those things would get taken care of, they were never taken care of. And I got to a place where I had to make a decision. As the program manager of that particular program, okay, I did not have my hands in the money aspect or transferring the money, which at first I was upset about, but then I understood that I was protected. God protected me in not giving me that, because then some things could have been shown on me. But I made a decision. You know, I looked at the organization and looked at the internal situation. And yes, I could have gone to the agency and said, this is this and that's that. I could have gone above that person's head, but it was too close, and the person above them would have supported that person, and I would have been the out. So I just chose to let it go. It wasn't important to me. I left. You know, and sometimes we have to look at the situations that we're dealing with and make a decision on whether we choose to participate or not. And got to the place where it wasn't worth it for me anymore. You know what I'm saying? Evidently, the fact that nothing changed after bringing it to my boss's attention, nothing changed, and I was going around and around and around following up on things that I had done a long time ago to cover myself, and it still didn't change. I had to make that decision, and so I just chose to bail out, move on. I was going to, working on my degree, and to move on and let it go. And so, that's one of the choices that we have to make when we see that things are not going ethically sound and there are problems. How are we going to handle that?
Absolutely.
Ethics starts from the top down of the organization, and you have to, as the leader, as the business owner, you have to exhibit the behavior that you're expecting for your subordinates or your employees to exhibit. And not only that, and we'll talk about that a little bit further, you've got to give them the standard. This business is going to have a zero tolerance to this, and this. And if you go outside of that, these are the repercussions of that. Okay? And so it's important to exhibit the behavior that you expect for those under you to function in.
And we just want to say that these are areas that you would find pitfalls in.
Some of the areas.
These are just some of the areas. He mentioned military, but if you look at it from a business perspective, Enron, 21,000 people was affected by the decisions that was made, the unethical decision. In the education arena, we have young people texting one another, giving the answer to exams that are being taken. So it's really interesting that it's cheating in every arena.
And even in the educational, you've heard of the Florida A&M University hazing situation. Sometimes you can have those ethical policies or guidelines in place. They had a no hazing policy. Okay, I worked at Florida A&M for 13 years, but they had a no hazing policy. But still, because things were being done and they did not know about that, okay, being done underground, the university is responsible, ultimately responsible for the death of the drum major. And it's really sad that that situation happened, but it's under their watch. You see what I'm saying? So you as the business owner, if something happens, if you have someone that's sexually harassing one of the employees, you're going to get sued for that. If you have someone that's lying and stealing, embezzling money, doing other things, not fulfilling the contracts or acting unethically with your stakeholders and your customers, then you're going to be the one sued for that. And so that's the thing that we have to continually remember, that ethics starts from the top down, and you have to continually monitor the different things that are going on. You have to have an open door policy. So that people will feel comfortable that if I come to you about a situation, that you will take that with the utmost confidence and you will work with that and you will do something about it.
We know that this is complicated, but yet what it boils down to is what kind of values and what kind of ethics are you carrying? And would you knowingly continue to allow something to go on that you have knowledge about? So you have to now look at yourself and say, okay, do I want to get involved? Do I have the guts? Do I have the tenacity? Do I have what it takes to stop this? Because I had to make a decision one day to stop something that was going on at GM. And I made a decision to challenge a man that most of the supervisor was afraid of. They just ignored him. And General Motors had a strong policy against profanity and doing things immorally. But on the other hand, and it was unbalanced, they had a union that protected the undesirables, okay, those who create problems. Those who should have been let go a long time ago, but the union, because he's a good paying dude, he pay his dues, okay, and he deserved representation. And so as his lawyer, I will represent him and ask the company to have mercy on him. Now, we should have compassion, but there are some people need to be gone. Okay? And you're going to be faced with, yes, it's got to be tough love. There are going to be some situations that each of us will have to deal with in our journey that we're going to have to get rid of some bad apples. But we're going to move forward because most of our problem starts right there. And if we get it right here, then all of these other areas will take care of themselves. Do I have agreement with that? If we can correct the family values, then I won't go out as a minister and rape boys. Okay? I would actually have a whole different mindset that I should have compassion and love and teach them and be a good example. So we'll move forward because this is real
in the political arena.
Hot
one of the hot topics is the governor of Blavanovich, the one that he's just been given what 14 years in prison for trying to sell the Senate seat.
And we just want to look at some ethical pitfalls that leaders are faced with. You know, it's really important that we don't have inflated egos, that we don't become so inflated in our mindset that we think we can control the outcome. It's interesting that we've had individuals to try to do that, and the results was devastating. And so it's key that we recognize that we must use a standard, and that standard must be consistent. If I'm ever going to be successful, I don't need to waver in my morality, if you will, or my values. There are some who believe that they are privileged to status, and I can act a certain way, and I can behave, and I can ignore rules. Because after all, I have this status, and I come from this stock. And there are people that you will run into that are just right out arrogant. And I have to say this because I believe that that is what hurt a lot of General Motors when I worked for them. I watched leaders who was very arrogant, who should have correct situations that they did not correct. And furthermore, they should have removed even managers that was not good for the organization. And the proof is in the pudding that General Motors had to reorganize and had to file bankruptcy. Being as profitable as they was, they had to reorganize. And when you reorganize, what are you really saying? You're saying that something is wrong or something is broken, it needs to be fixed. Because if my strategy was working, or the initial strategy that I came up with was working, then it would be no need for me to go through this. But obviously something was wrong. So they can look and say, well, okay, the economy changed and people stopped doing business. Well, perhaps they stopped doing business because you had internal problems. And notice when we have internal problems, it affects the industry, because my automobiles and my trucks are not going to be of good quality. I will have to call back in automobiles that are going out, that are defected. I watch all of these things happen right there at General Motors. I watch people who actually did not care about how the quality of trucks was built and how they went out the door. Okay? Very key. And in your industry, your prospective industry, you're going to have to be on top of the quality of what you're producing. And you're going to have to know what's going out your doors. And furthermore, you're going to have to know what kind of people you're bringing in your setting. This is what leaders face. They face gambling at the expense of their followers or their employees. And we have to be aware of the very fact that we can destroy what we once built. And just think about that for a moment. You got a thriving business, and all of a sudden you like, okay, I'm on top of the world and I don't have to worry no more. I'm fixed now. I'm doing good. And I can kind of let some of these values go that I held so closely now. I want you to think about that, because people do that. They get to a place where they say, you know, I don't have to be as consistent now because things are looking good for me. And I can kind of let my hair down a little bit, so I'm going to ignore some things. Let me give you a little story that General Motors had a double-edged sword working against them. And what I mean by that, on one hand, they said we would not tolerate profanity and vulgarity in our setting. But on the other hand, they say, but we allow you to do shop talk. So shop talk says that I can talk to you any kind of way, Eugene, and that's between me and you, and we can go at it. But at some point, you may become irritated at me, and now you want that nonsense to stop that the company has permitted us to do among ourselves. But now if you come up to labor relations, we're going to judge you by the book. So we're going to take the book and say, Eugene, what Will said to you is wrong, and here it is. It's in paragraph 3, section 4. And so paragraph 3, section 4 says that we must give Will 13 days off because of his behavior. But I set a double-edged standard in my setting by allowing you to do that. So you see the danger or the pitfall in that kind of behavior. We must be, as leaders, consistent with our values and our morals.
Can I say something right there?
Yes.
That's a good example of situational ethics, situational leadership. You know, you can do this, or it's the paradox. You could do this, but then you could do this. So which is right and which is wrong, and how do you govern yourself accordingly, okay? So you have to be careful of that, very mindful, very careful of how you set those standards, those policies, and those procedures, and how you make sure that you're monitoring whether your employees are following that process. And it's important to get their buy-in, like we said earlier, to have them sitting at the table when you're looking at making changes within the organization. You're looking at doing some things, maybe developing new policies or going in a totally different direction. Having your employees sitting at the table with you and giving you feedback will definitely create a win-win environment, because if they're part of the process, that development process, and you hear the information that they're sharing with you, and you take those things into the whole overall process and implement them, then they're going to carry out that vision because they feel like they're a part of it. Okay? Some of the problems that you have when employees are disgruntled and upset, and you're going to have problems with sick leave, people taking excessive sick leave because they're not happy. You're going to have problems with maybe sabotage within your environment with equipment or other things. And so it's important to make sure that you are paying attention to your employees, you're giving them the value that you put into them when you hired them, and you're allowing them to do their job and get those rewards as well.
Yes, we're talking about developing a code of ethics in your organization. It's imperative to have something written down that you could instruct and educate your employees. They need to know. Do not assume because you hire talented people that they come into your organization with their morals intact. Understand that it's your responsibilities as owners, as business owners, entrepreneurs, to have a code of conduct. This is what we're going to tolerate, and this is what we're not going to tolerate. You need to create a handbooklet or whatever it takes to actually inform and instruct people in your organization. Furthermore, the burden lies on your shoulders, each of us as entrepreneurs, to show ourselves as a moral person. Now, don't think that you're going to be able to act one way and get a different result. It's just not going to happen. You're going to get some different result, but it's not going to be the result that you want. Because if I think I can say anything I'm big enough to say, and I'm telling you that you can't and you are my subordinates, I have created a situation here. I've created a monster that now I'm going to have to try to fix. And I've created an environment now that's going to cost me dearly. And so it's very key that we understand that a code of conduct is very important in your setting.
A code of conduct is very, very important. And just the literature basically states that people will dismiss a leader that may not have all of the skills and the talents that they need to implement their business, but they will not dismiss the unethical conduct. Okay, and we had this to play out in a board of directors that my husband and I were on. We had the skills, the person had the vision, and we said, okay, you know, we'll be on your board and we'll carry a key position in that, and we will, because we're executive coaches, we'll help coach you to get where you need to go, and we'll give you some consulting advice and those kinds of things. And, you know, we had some problems initially with the person, other board members that initially did not go along with the vision. They weren't a good fit for the organization. And so therefore they were trying to run things the way they wanted to, and it ended up being a problem. And those people were let go. But then all of a sudden, the one of the founders, which was the president, ended up deciding that one particular day he was going to go onto the board meeting and curse everybody out because they didn't go along with what he was doing, which was unethical. Okay? And, you know, he held himself to a different level of behavior where he was ready to get rid of board members that did less than what he did. And while he got rid of them, he was talking about, we're not going to tolerate this. This is a culture of respect, family environment. We're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing the other. He, on the other hand, went in and totally did the opposite. When he went into the boardroom and cursed everyone out, and he was the one that was wrong, and they were standing and saying, no, we don't agree with this, because he didn't get the support. We ended up just saying, you know what, we're going to resign because it's not worth it. Why would we waste our time when we had been trying to help the leader to fulfill the vision and to conduct himself more ethically? But then when he did what he did, we just said, no, we can spend our time and energy doing something much more effective. Absolutely. But you have that double-edged sword, and you have to make some decisions and choices when it comes down to ethics. If the leadership is not ethical, then you've really lost before you even get off the ground.
Absolutely. Here's some ethical perspective. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Now, I want you to think about this for a minute. We have universal principles that that goes across culture. It cuts across boundaries, okay? And no matter about your background or your culture, it's something about treatment that we get that we want people to treat us right. I have never met a person that said to me, treat me worse than what I treat you, or do to me whatever you can and see if I can take it. I have never met a person to engage me that way. And so what I'm saying, in essence, is that you won't find people that want you to do anything remotely to them, from disrespecting them to just being unkind. We're not even talking about you just saying a kind word. We're talking about none of us want to be faced with any type of opposition that goes against our morals and our value. We just don't want that. We don't invite that. But when we are faced with that, we learn how to manage and deal with that. But the top and bottom line is that we're not out there saying and have a sign on our back, come on and do whatever you can. Let me see how bad you can treat me and see how much I can take. Nobody is doing that. So it's key that we trust others and let them know that we can that we can trust them and they can trust us. And it's key that we do that, especially for your employees. That's key. Can I trust you? People don't want to know how much you know, but they want to know how much you care. And so we could go out thinking that no one is watching, and I can do something a little different now, because who's going to know? But I'm a firm believer that somebody know and somebody see you, and somebody can figure out what you're doing without you saying a word. And it's interesting that all of us have what we call intuition, and then some of us have superstition. But the point that I'm making is that intuition really helps us sometime to, quote, pass a judgment that may be correct from the first time that we meet a person. Because there may be something about their character that we picked up, that we actually recognize, and I've seen that before. And what is it about this person? There's something about this person that I've seen before, and I just don't like it because it don't feel right. Have you ever been there? Absolutely. And so what I'm saying is that we all have that. We have that intuition.
Sometimes you get that vibe and you don't know what it is about the person, and you try to brush it off.
Right.
But when you look at hindsight, in a lot of cases you can say, there was something that I just don't know why I felt, but I felt something wasn't right with that person. Be open-minded and listen to the people, your stakeholders, listen to your employees, listen to what they have to say, and let them know that you may not like what they come to you about, but you do have an open door policy, and that you will give them your full attention. That's going to be very, very important. Demonstrating compassion, conducting yourself with integrity, a high level of integrity, because you're the role model that you want them to mimic in your business, and do the right thing. Do the right thing is really, really hard sometimes, and you have to put a lot of personal risk out there. It may cost you something, but when you do the right thing, it does come back around full circle. If you, let's say, have a product, and for some reason the product has a warranty, and the warranty just went out, and maybe the customer comes back and says, I know the warranty just ran out, or whatever. I'm just giving you an example. And you say, well, we'll work with that, or we'll replace it, or we'll do whatever. Don't you know that it will come back to you? Because they will go out and talk about, I went to them and they worked with us. And I think a happy customer goes out and tells other people of their experience with you, just as a disgruntled customer. So word of mouth can impact your business in a positive way, or it can impact it in a negative way. And that's basically your choice. You need to stand behind your product. You need to stand behind what you do, because it does make a difference. So we have here just a comparison perspective, the gold or the golden rule. People who go for the gold versus people who go for the golden rule. People who go for the gold ask, what you can do for me. The flip side of that is people that go for the golden rule ask, what can I do for you? Okay? They ask people that go for the gold, make convenient decisions. While on the flip side of that, those that go for the golden rule, they make character decisions. They look at what's going to be the best decision for our whole organization and those. People that go for the gold, they sacrifice family for finances. People that go for the golden rule, they sacrifice finances for their family. Okay? They see the things that really, really matter. And I'm not going to go through all of that, but people that go for the gold, they count their dollars. And people that go for the golden rule, they count their friends. They count their family. They look at the things that are most important versus the money. Ethical dilemma. An ethical dilemma can be defined as an undesirable or an unpleasant choice relating to a moral principle or practice.
Strategy for working through ethical dilemma. This is what we actually encourage people to do. We encourage people to really look at the problem carefully, define it. So many times we are not defining the problem, we're defining a symptom. And so in order to get down to the problem, we need to go a little bit deeper, thorough in our investigation to be able to come up with a workable solution and various alternatives for working through a dilemma. A dilemma is really tough because there is a lot to take into consideration when we're talking about dilemmas. And just think about it for a moment that it's not something that's cut and dry. It's something that takes time to work through. And we're going to have dilemmas in our setting as long as we are business owners and have pressing towards being entrepreneurs. We're going to have dilemmas. But the good thing is that there are help for you to work through these things. I'm sure, Eugene, you've been through a lot of situations where dilemmas was present and decision had to be made. And I'm sure that someone might have been injured as a result of a decision being made, while another party was satisfied. So you see, we have dilemmas even in the judiciary system. Sometimes people are falsely accused of things and are injured because of a dilemma, because they look like they fit
the profile.
So it's interesting. So we have to really take a lot of things into consideration. We have to have some values, and we have to look at alternatives, and then we have to follow through on the best solution to be really effective.
And the thing that I would also like to say is we all know when we're struggling with things. When you have something that just keeps gnawing at you and you don't know if you should make this decision or if you're not at peace with it. When you're dealing with an ethical dilemma. When you're just not able to have peace about something. And we're going to work through, we're going to break up into two groups in just a second. And we're going to do this group exercise, and then we're going to just let you go through and use these two approaches. We've given you two of many approaches to dealing with ethical dilemmas, because sometimes it takes looking at things from a different perspective in order to come up with the decisions and choices that are in the best interest of our company or organization. So we have Kidder's ethical checkpoints, and we have Nash's 12 questions. These are just two of many approaches that can be used to help you to work through the best decision in an ethical dilemma state. Okay? So the first one will be Kidder's ethical checkpoints. We have here.
You have this in the back of your material. I want you to take a look at that.
We have a scenario that we're getting ready to go into.
And what we want you to do is just look at these checkpoints, and it will help you with the activity that we give you. We'd like for you to kind of read over that. We have another approach, Nash 12 questions. We'd like for you to look at that. Okay, the 12 questions. And then we're going to go into the group activity.
You have a scenario. It's an ethical dilemma, okay? And you have the two different ways that you can work through that. One is the Kidder's checkpoint, and the other is the Nash 12 questions. Choose the one that you would like to choose, and then just work through. We're going to give you some paper to write, and we'd like you to work through that for the next 15 minutes.
As a group,
and list how you've worked through that, and then we're going to just report out briefly, have one person in your group to report what your findings were, and then we will sum up that process.
Everybody knows the scenario, obviously. So we use Kidler's ethical checkpoints.
Okay.
So we just went through that to
Because
test our ability.
it was less intense.
Yeah, a bit shorter. So one, we identified the problem. Bottom line was using an improved chemical. So we kind of talked a little bit about the actor or actors. We basically said the VP, as the VP, that is the main actor because ultimately that person has the final say. So the scientist plays into that because they have information. But the actor really is the vice president who makes the final decision.
Okay.
As far as gathering relevant facts, we said we have 3 different relevant facts. The chemical's not approved. That's fact. Possible 90-day approval. If possible, because there's no guarantee. And then we couldn't continue producing without the chemical. Those were all facts. Test for right versus wrong issues. Basically, just said it's about continuing producing or not. Period. What is right or what is wrong. With right versus right values, we said you couldn't use them based on right versus right.
Okay.
Apply the ethical standards and perspectives. That do the right thing. Bottom line, the definition is that do the right thing even when it costs. We thought about jobs being lost and the business might close down and kind of thing, but still, it's the right thing to do. Looking for a third way. Dave said, "Hey, why not let's request a waiver from EPA to see if we can get it approved ahead of time?" I said, "I love that idea. That's our option." So we would pursue that. Make the decision. Of course, we said when we pursue option 3, that would be our decision to see if we could get a waiver in advance. But if not, then we would stop using the chemical. And really, that discussion, we were just kind of wrapping up saying, in the end, there's no guarantee that the chemical would be approved. And if we used it, God forbid it wouldn't be approved, and then we would have repercussions. And most likely, guess what? People would be out of jobs, and the company would shut down anyways. So we said, we're going to have to take a risk, do the right thing. So revisit and reflect on the decision. I made it up and said, hey, we got approval in advance to use it.
Okay, and we're gonna hold our comments until after we hear from our other team.
What you gonna hear?
Oh, okay. Well, this is Nash's 12 questions. We were working our way down through it, and we didn't quite get all the way through quickly, but the first thing was, did you define the problem accurately? And I think you did very good. It's a potential, and I use that word, it's a potential problem with a chemical. Now, how would you define the problem if you stood on the other side of the fence? Well, what's the other side of the fence? We looked at it as there's basically 4 stakeholders. You've got the public and the government, the employees, the company, okay? And so those are the other sides of the fence. So to my employees, am I using an unsafe chemical? To the community, on the front page of the Washington Post, X company uses hazardous chemical. Bad, bad. Government regulators, they can come in and shut you down anyway, okay? So these are all things. Also to the employees, it's an issue of integrity and safety. So you've got liability, you've got public capability, and you've got this. And then an interesting question, how does this occur in the first place? Well, you've been doing it for a long time.
Right.
Did something change? So did the rules change? And more than that even is the expert valid? Government regulations tend to be very complex. I've written some of them. Believe me, there can be multiple interpretations. And I know this is an approved list. Well, does that mean that anything not on the list is unapproved? Or does it mean that these are known safe chemicals for whatever use, and is this the exact use? You can use a drug for other than its intended purposes in some situations. So what I really came up with is there's a lot more research that needs to go in here. And this was really good to this point too, because I feel that there's two main activities that happen when a big problem like this comes up. The first tendency a lot of people have is to hide it and sweep it under the rug. Okay? It's going to go away in 3 months, nobody's ever going to know. Wrong. Okay? Or they take draconian measures right now. And that is, we're going to shut the plant right now, we're going to stop using it, we're going to cut our customers off from our product. And if you do that on the basis of an expert who's wrong in the first place, or is doing that for his own reasons, whatever it may be, then you have injured. Number 5 is, what is your intention in making this decision? I think the intention that we came up with was to solve this problem without creating further harm. And if you shut down the plant, well, that's obviously further harm. Is that harm worse than the other options? You need to get more information before you do that. Let's see, we were up to 5, right? Oh, there was a question 4 I didn't talk about. It basically ties into the stakeholder. To whom and to what do you give your loyalties as a person or group and as a member of the organization? So you've got the company, the employees, the company, and society. So those are different stakeholders, and you have to figure out what those loyalties are, and look at it from their viewpoint too, like we did earlier. So if the intention is to solve the problem without further harm to our stakeholders, number 6 is, how does this intention compare with the likely results? Well, they have conflicting viewpoints. There may be conflict in there. But I think if it's approached properly, any one of those stakeholders can respect that approach, that we want to solve this problem without creating further harm. Let's see.
Can you just do 7? What number you at now?
Yeah, 7, whom could your decision or action injure? I mean, obviously, it could injure the image of the company, could injure the employees and the customers.
I think that both of you have done a good job of assessing the situation. I think one of the main problems is, how did we get here? And this company knew, somebody knew, that the chemical was not authorized for use. So they were using it. I don't know who made that decision, but somebody knew that that chemical was not in compliance with EPA. Yet. It was not approved. But for some reason, they decided to use a chemical because this is the only one that we could use. Something is seriously wrong here. And it started off on a wrong foundational base. Okay? Now, this new person that came in, he was hired to make sure that they were in compliance. And he came to them and he said, I don't even know how you're doing this, but you're using this chemical, and even though it is slated to be approved in 3 months, well, think about how long they had been using it before that time, okay? So they were totally out of compliance. And that's really where the problem, the ethics started way back when they decided to, because you know when you have chemicals that you have to be in standard, okay? That's a key component, you know. And someone knew, someone high up knew and made the decision, we're going to go on and use a chemical that we shouldn't have used because it hasn't been approved, and 3 months is going to be approved. But think if they've been using this product all of this time and now they're at this situation, then they've been illegally functioning and putting their people at risk and putting, you know, their products at risk and not really caring about that, because they know down the line it's going to be approved. So there's a problem. Absolutely. You know? And so I think that you've done a good job, though. Now, you go and say, okay, we'll get approval to use, and I think that that was a good, you know, brainstorming thing. Well, you know, we don't want to put our people out of work. We don't want to have to stop this operation until hand, but you've been functioning legally. So if you go to the EPA and say, can we get approval to use this in advance because we need to have this chemical? Well, why do you need to have this chemical? Well, we've been using it. You're going to get fined and put out of work anyway because you were using it illegally, correct?
Yes.
Well, possibly, and that's, that's exactly what we said, as you go through here.
Yeah.
Is the expert right? Validate. If somebody made a decision way back when, then you're better off going to the EPA than having them find out later.
Right.
Actually, now that I've read this a little bit more carefully, it says you can't produce your product without this chemical.
So
Yet regulations say that you're not supposed to use the chemical until it's officially approved.
That's right.
Exactly.
So the expert's right.
So-
They hired him, I guess, maybe
Right.
to be the fall person, because
He
they
said-
hired somebody in compliance.
Well, and that's, I thought, see, I didn't read in there where it said that where the regulations change or everything and how long they've been doing this. So then the question is, did the regulation change after the process?
Well,
It's an interesting scenario,
It
but
is.
let us give you what the experts say, okay? And I think you guys done a great job.
You did.
But when we talk about dilemma, remember, we're talking about things that are ongoing. It's not a quick fix to it. We have to keep on working with it until we're able to come to a workable solution.
Right.
It may not be what we call satisfactory to everybody, okay? But it's a workable solution, and we're going to have to deal with this right now, okay? Until we can come up with a better solution. Isn't that how the medicine is, pharmaceutical? They say on one hand, we have
all out here.
some drugs here, and the side effect is that, first of all, the benefit is that it will stop your head from hurting. But the side effect is that it's going to affect your liver, okay? And you're going to lose part of that function depending on how much you take. Well, that's a problem, and that's what we call a dilemma. Okay, so as a consumer, I got to make a decision. Do I want to take Tylenol for a headache? And later down the road, if I take enough of it, I may have liver problems, okay? So this is what we mean. We got dilemma in our society that we are constantly and consistently working on, okay, to try to come up with better solution and alternative to the problem, okay? So listen to what the expert said. Come on, baby, read this and just listen to this. This is interesting.
The solution isn't clear, and good character isn't enough to guide decision-making in this case. As with all ethical dilemmas, values are in conflict here. Obeying the letter of the law versus keeping the plant open and saving jobs. The decision is complicated by the fact that the chemical has been found to be safe and is expected to be approved in a matter of months. As in many of today's business decisions, this complex issue requires the development of occupation-specific skills and abilities. For example, some knowledge in the area of chemistry, worker safety, environmental laws and regulations would be essential. Basic good intentions and good upbringing aren't enough.
Right. And so what he's saying in essence is that we got to get the appropriate skills working for us. We got to get all of the individuals, just like many of you thought and wrote down and dealt with. Okay, we got to look at people who have the skills to kind of work through this crisis. So that's what we're saying in essence. It's a continuous working towards a solution that could help bring resolve to the situation. And so just notice you may have your ethics and your morality intact. And this is some of the dilemmas that we would run into in life that we'll find ourselves staying up at night trying to figure out, okay, what I'm going to do, you know. And sometimes you have to kind of let it go for a while and then come back to it because you don't have the answer right now. Okay, make sense?
Absolutely. I thought it was great what you read, but one of the things that this exposes is if there wasn't a change in the rules,
Yes.
you need to go back and find out who made that decision at the beginning, because that is not right. And if the company has to pay a fine to realize that, then that's okay.
And so the thing too is that with the business or organization would be the one sued. Mm-hmm. So when you have in your ethical guidelines or code of ethics that these are non-negotiable things, just like the FAMU situation and just like so many other of the ethical dilemmas that we discussed today, okay? And it's important to also talk with your attorneys to find out how can I protect my business, okay, from people that are making decisions and choices that can impact our business, okay? But we need to find out who made that decision, and they need to be the ones that would pay the price or the fine, or there needs to be some penalty attached to them being dismissed in addition to some other things. Yeah. But by having that code of ethics, by having them to sign on the dotted line that I've read, I understand, and I recognize that if I do such and such and such, not only can I be terminated, but I can be subjected to fines and other things. That protects you as much as you can be protected, because they're going to go after the business anyway.
Absolutely. So thank you for your input. We want to move on to a few...
We're going to wrap it up in a few minutes.
And move on to some golden nuggets.
So the last section is leadership and ethical nuggets for success. Leadership and ethical nuggets. You also need to treat people better than they treat you. So you always need to remember that, okay? Go the extra mile to help someone. Always give a helping hand to others, and always keep the promises that you make to people and fulfill the commitments that you've made.
Nuggets of wisdom. People only see what they are prepared to see. Understand that. Sometimes we can be in dialogue, and you can explain to me thoroughly what you mean about what you're saying. And for some reason, I could walk away with the mindset, because I'm emotionally wrapped and I'm not focusing on what the real issue is, that I can walk away with something totally different. And we can line 10 people up in this room, and we can speak in the first person ear. We're going to a party. By the time it gets to the last person, it will change to we're having a party. Rather than going to a party. Interesting.
Okay, forgiveness is not an occasional act. It is a permanent attitude. You know, we need to let go of things. We need to forgive people. It causes a lot of health challenges when you're walking around holding grudges and angry and bitter because someone has mistreated you, done something to you that hasn't been right. You know, you need to learn, and it's very hard to do, but you need to learn life is just too short. How to let things roll off your back like water on a duck and keep going, because all of the things that are associated with unforgiveness and the challenges that may occur, they're just not worth it, especially with life being so short.
Some more golden nuggets. The world we have made as a result of the level of thinking we have done thus far creates problems we cannot solve at the same level of thinking at which we created them. So what he's really saying in essence is that we're going to have to change. We cannot solve a problem with the same kind of thinking that we created with. We have to go into a different mode of thinking to resolve a problem. Make sense?
You have not lived today successfully unless you've done something for someone who can never repay you. We also need to remember the importance of doing unto others and giving back. You know, reaching down and helping someone that maybe can't pay us. You know, we have our businesses. Helping someone else that maybe cannot pay us in whatever way will come back to you. When you give, it comes back to you in so many different ways. They may know someone that will end up being your largest customer. You never know. But word of mouth goes a long way, and it's just a universal principle. When you give, it comes back.
Charles Darwin said, "It is not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change." And now we go again. Change is inevitable. We must go through change. We cannot avoid it. Our world has changed. If we don't go with the flow, we're left behind. So in essence, change is necessary. And every day, things are getting different and they're changing. Why is that? Because we're moving in a progressive society. A progressive society. And just over the last 20 years, we have went someplace that our leaders and people alike have not even thought of going to. And just think about that for a moment. We've went somewhere with technology. Technology has just taken off to such a level that it's mind-boggling right now. So it's really awesome.
The greatest battle you wage against failure occurs on the inside, not on the outside. The negative thinking that goes on in our minds. That's really where the battle is won or lost, the thinking. You are your thoughts. And what you manifest in life has a lot to do with what you've been thinking about. So if you believe that you're going to be successful and you meditate on that and you work with that, you will be successful. You will stumble into it. But if you believe that you can't do this, the economy is too bad and my business will not succeed, then guess what? The same thing will happen.
Vision means to see something coming into view as if it were already there. And that's how we create our business. This is how we create our world. We envision it. And notice, it's something very powerful about writing something down. When you write it down, for some reason, it seems to materialize. Have you ever noticed that? But as long as you got it in your head, what happened? It stays there, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just a dream. But when we write it down, something happened. When we put paper to pen, we're like, oh man, okay, let me go to the bank, let me go to the lender, let me go. And so we have a way to make that thing manifest. Very powerful. Think about that.
And also, one of the things that we have in reference to vision is we have a vision wall. And we put things up on that vision wall and we meditate on that. And it's really interesting how it might not happen at the time that we initially put it up and was expecting it to happen, but we can go back and look at things that we had on our vision wall maybe 2 years ago that are now coming forth. And so it's important to write down your vision. It's important to meditate on it. It's important to continually work through that. And there is a biblical principle. I think it comes from Habakkuk 2:2, and it says, write the vision and make it plain. When you write it down, it does come to pass. You start working on ways to implement that. Mm-hmm. Every great institution is the lengthened shadow of a single man. His character determines the character of his organization. We talked a lot today about character. We talked about character, integrity, and we talked about the importance of the leader and other people, you know, functioning with good moral character and the impact that it does have on his organization.
And this world is not what we take up, but what we give up that make us rich. Remember, when you're very profitable, to give back. It's not so much what you're taking in that makes you rich, but how much can I give away from what I've gained that make me richer? And then not only that, I have a legacy that I can pass on, and my name will be a good name.
Bill Gates, he's given back in scholarships and other things to people to make their life much more prosperous. Oprah Winfrey, she's given back. She gives. You know, those that have made it, in most cases, a lot of them are giving back to those that are less fortunate. They're reaching down and they're giving a helping hand, and their memory will go on because of the efforts that they've put to pass. Now let's talk about eagles. You don't see eagles flying in a group, do you? Eagles fly either solo or you may see two of them, and usually if you see two of them, it's a mate, a couple, okay? But eagles fly alone. Mm-hmm. And why is that? Because they have to walk that path by themselves. And we as leaders, in lots of cases, we have to walk a path that's different. Mm-hmm. than everyone else. We have a different vision, and we have to implement that. And I was showing my husband, it was this picture of penguins, and it was like 6 penguins. I don't know if you've seen this picture, but it was 6 penguins. 5 were going one way, and 1 was turning going the other way. And it's the same thing as an eagle, you know? And he said, I choose to go another path. Sometimes we have to go the path that has not been already trailed. We have to be the trailblazer. And that, through that process, ends up making us successful, especially when we get to the other end, because we're choosing not to follow what everybody else is doing.
We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. And we understand habits, right? A habit that takes no thought to do it. If I'm a smoker and I have a habit, I don't have to think about it. I can just reach in my pocket and get me a cigarette randomly, and it takes no thought to do that. That's habit. We understand addiction. So what he's saying in essence is that it's just not an act, but it's a habit. So if you're really moving into excellence, you must get in a habit.
The moment you stop learning, you stop leading. There are so many things out there that you could use to enhance your skills, your traits, your characteristics as a leader. And so when you stop growing, you stop learning, then you stop leading.
And this is just some of the ethical toolkits. We encourage you to go to this website, ethics.org. They have material there that you could get. All they ask you to do is give them credit for the material that you take off their website. If you use some of it to construct a manual for yourself on ethics, you can do that. This website is free.
We were going to give you a guideline and some steps on developing a code of ethics, but they have that at that website. And so we just thought we would put it in there for you.
Right. And this particular website also have material already made up. They will design whatever you need design. They have packages that they'll sell you, a kit that they'll sell you on ethics if you need that. Here are some ethical theory resources, websites that you can go through. It actually gives you a little bit more information on the theory, how they come up with the theory and their investigation and the research. If you a student, that kind of thing, that you are not satisfied with surface knowledge and you want to go a little deeper, then you can visit some of these websites and understand their research methods, okay? Final nugget of wisdom for today: do all the good you can to all the people you can in all the ways you can for as long as you can. Evangelist D.L. Moody. That is very powerful and it's challenging all at the same time. And so we'd like to thank you today. We appreciate your participation. We appreciate the interjection, all of the things that you've done to make this a success by interacting with us. We hope that you got a lot from what we brought to you. We'd just like to say that we wish each of you the very best, and we're praying God's best for you, that each of you will prosper in your prospective field, and that God will grant you entrance and access to all of those doors that you've been knocking on. And that is our prayer for each of you today, that you get it, what is coming to you by your strive, by your faith, by your efforts, by everything that has been driven, you've been driven by and has drove you to this point of saying, you know, I want to be the best that I can be at what I'm doing. And so what we're saying in essence is that we stand in agreement with you that you can be the best that you can be. And you could change a world. If one can chase 1,000 and 2 can chase 10,000, think about it. If you got 3 employees, wow, that may be 100,000. So thank you for your participation, and we wish you the best.
Thank you so much.